happens when life pulls you away from your own voice, not because you stopped caring, not because you lost your gift, not because you forgot who you were, but because you got busy surviving, producing, responding, showing up, keeping things moving. And somewhere along the way, the pen got quiet. Today, we are talking about what it means to come back to the pen. Not just the literal pen, but the creative pen, the decision-making pen, the spiritual pen, and the pen that reminds you that you still have something to say. This is the Main Character Mindset podcast series, and this episode is called Back to the Pen.
Welcome to the She Thinks She's Cute podcast, a storytelling platform exploring perception, identity, and the moments that quietly shape who we become. A space for thought-provoking stories and conversations. Created and hosted by Denise Williams. This work began on the stage, but it developed into a broader storytelling platform. A space for honesty, for perspective, and for the conversations we may not usually say out loud. Here, we don't shrink to fit. We don't dim to survive the room. We show up, aware, expanding, and becoming. This is She Thinks She's Cute. Original stories, intentional impact. Let's begin.
Welcome back to the She Thinks She's Cute podcast, where we have honest conversations about identity, purpose, perception, creativity, and the decisions that shape who we are becoming. I'm Tonya, and I'm back as your guest host for the Main Character Mindset podcast series. This series is about reclaiming your voice, your originality, your authority, and your assignment in a world that is constantly trying to crowd your sound. And you already know the reminder: be the voice, not the remix. In episode 1, we talked about what happens when your voice gets crowded. In episode 2, we talked about why originality is a lifestyle, not just a creative choice. And today, in episode 3, we are going back to the pen. This conversation is not just for writers. It is for anyone who has ever had to return to the part of themselves that got buried under pressure, responsibility, disappointment, delay, comparison, or noise. Denise, this title feels personal. What were you thinking when you created this episode, Back to the Pen?
Hello, Tonya, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. Tonya, for me, Back to the Pen means returning to the place where my voice is honest again. It is not just about writing words on paper. It's about coming back to the place where you can hear yourself clearly. Sometimes the pen represents creativity. Sometimes it represents clarity. Sometimes it represents healing. Sometimes it represents instruction. Sometimes it represents the assignment. And sometimes the pen, it represents the part of you that life did not destroy, but it did interrupt. That matters because some people think that they have lost their voice when really their voice has been covered by everything they have been carrying. The responsibilities, the expectations, the pressure to keep up, the disappointment of things not moving the way that they thought they would. Before you know it, you are still functioning, but you're not flowing. You're still busy, but you're not creating from a clear space, a clear place. You are still speaking, but maybe you are not saying what is really in you. So for me, going back to the pen is about returning to the source and asking, what did I stop writing because life got loud?
That phrase is strong. Life did not destroy it, but life interrupted it. That feels like a word for someone who has been hard on themselves because they stopped creating, stopped dreaming, or stopped hearing themselves clearly.
Exactly. And interruption can look like failure if you do not understand what season you're in. Sometimes you did not quit. You were stretched. You were pulled into survival mode, or you had to handle what was in front of you. You had to make difficult decisions. You had to carry responsibilities that others may never fully understand. And when this happens, the pen may get quiet, but quiet does not always mean empty. Sometimes quiet means something is waiting on you to return with a deeper understanding.
Let's go there because sometimes people do not realize they have handed the pen over. Who or what can take the pen out of someone's hand?
A lot of things can take the pen, Tonya, and many of them are subtle. Fear can take the pen, comparison can take the pen, exhaustion, disappointment, people pleasing, pressure can all take the pen. Grief can take the pen. Perfectionism can take the pen. Sometimes you can hand the pen over when you stop trusting your own discernment. We have to trust our own discernment. We can hand it over if we create only what people clap for. You can hand it over when you shrink the idea because you're afraid it will not be understood. You can hand it over when you keep adjusting your voice until it sounds acceptable to everyone except you. You can hand the pen over when you keep asking, what are they doing? Instead of asking, what am I called to build? And that does not mean you cannot learn from people. We should learn. We should also be teachable. We should pay attention. But there is a difference between learning something and surrendering your authorship. There is a difference between someone being inspired and being replaced.
That is good because it gives people language for something that can happen quietly. They may still be moving, still posting, still working, still producing, but the pen may not really be in their hand anymore.
Exactly. And I think one of the biggest ways the pen gets taken is through exhaustion. Sometimes we can mislabel exhaustion as a lack of discipline. There are seasons where you are not unmotivated, you're actually depleted. And when you're depleted, you may still love the assignment, but may not have the same emotional strength to carry it that you once did. That is why it is important to separate the assignment from the pace. You can still be called to something and need rest. You can still be gifted and need recovery. You can still be committed and need to pause long enough to breathe. Back to the pen does not mean you punish yourself for the time you were quiet. It means you return with honesty and transparency. You may have to write, I am tired. You may have to write, I am disappointed. You may have to write, I don't know what comes next. I still believe, but I need help. That is still writing. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can write is the truth you were afraid to admit.
Let's talk about the pen as authority because back to the pen feels like more than creativity. It feels like ownership.
Absolutely. The pen is powerful because the pen says, I have a role in shaping this. And that applies to so many areas of life. When you get back to the pen, you stop living like everything is just happening to you. You start asking, what part of this am I responsible for writing? Not controlling everything and not forcing everything, not pretending you can fix everything, but recognizing that you are not powerless. You can write the next decision. You can write the next boundary. You can write the next prayer. You can write the next step. You can write the next chapter of your healing. You can write the next version of your leadership. To me, that is part of having a main character mindset. It is not about being loud. It is not about being self-centered, needing to be seen in every room. It is about understanding that you have the responsibility for life, the voice, the vision, and the assignment that God gave you. Sometimes you have to pick the pen back up because you have been letting other things write for you. Fear has been writing, comparison, disappointment, urgency have been writing. People's opinions have been writing. Old versions of you have been writing.
That connects so clearly to the main character mindset because it is not just about being seen. It is about being responsible for what you allow to shape the story.
True. You cannot claim the role and refuse the pen. That means you have to participate in your growth. You have to be honest about your patterns. You have to examine what has been influencing your decisions. You have to stop outsourcing your clarity to people who are not responsible for your assignment. And you have to ask, what am I writing with my choices? Your life is not only written by what you say, it is also written by what you keep choosing. Your boundaries are writing. Your yes is writing. Your no is writing. Your silence is writing. Your timing is writing. Your obedience is writing. Your courage is writing. Your avoidance is writing also. So back to the pen is bigger than creativity. It's a call to pay attention to what your life is saying.
Well, in episode 2, we talked about originality being a lifestyle. With Back to the Pen, I keep thinking about how easy it is to create in response to everything around us. Trends, pressure, algorithms, what performed well, what someone else said, what everyone else seems to be doing. How does someone know when they have stopped creating from their own pen and started creating only in response?
Great question. How does someone know when they have stopped creating from their own pen and started creating only in response? I would suggest that one sign is when your work starts feeling disconnected from your conviction. It may look good, it may sound good, it may even perform well, but something about it feels borrowed. Not necessarily because you copied someone, because you stopped checking in with your own assignment. You're moving, but you're not rooted. And in this season, a lot of people are producing more than ever, but they're not always connected to what they are producing. Content is moving fast. Ideas are moving fast. Everyone seems to have access to everybody. If you're not grounded, you can start creating from reaction instead of revelation. You can see something work for someone else, and suddenly your pen starts chasing their rhythm. You can hear someone's language, and suddenly your voice starts bending. You can see someone's success, and suddenly your timing starts feeling slow. That is when you have to come back to the pen and ask, what is mine to say? Not what is popular, not what will make people think I am relevant, not what will make people believe I'm keeping up, but what is mine to say?
That question is simple, but not easy.
No, it is not easy because sometimes what is yours to say will not trend right away. Sometimes it will not be understood right away. And sometimes it will require more patience than performance. But originality requires stewardship. And stewardship is not always flashy. Sometimes stewardship is sitting with the idea long enough to understand why it was given to you. Sometimes it is developing it privately. Sometimes it is refusing to turn every sacred thing into immediate content. That is part of going back to the pen. It is not just writing more. It is writing from the right place. And I think this is where we have to protect private process. Everything does not need an audience. Some things need to be worked out before they are posted. Some ideas need to be protected before they are presented. And some lessons need to be lived before they are taught. Performance says, how will this look? Stewardship asks, is this ready? Performance asks, will they respond? Stewardship asks, is this rooted? Back to the pen is not always for public consumption. Sometimes it is for private alignment.
Let's talk about disappointment. Sometimes people do not go back to the pen because the last thing they wrote, built, launched, created, or believed for did not turn out the way they expected. How do you pick the pen back up after disappointment?
Available now on Amazon, search Strategic Stillness by Denise Williams. Start your next season with Strategic Stillness.
Great question, Tonya. How do you pick the pen back up after disappointment? I would suggest carefully. I do not think we need to rush people through disappointment. There are some things that hurt because you cared. There are some delays that hurt because you were prepared. There are some outcomes that hurt because you were obedient and still had to walk through something difficult. So I would never tell someone to just get over it and write the next thing. But I would say this: do not let disappointment become the final author. Disappointment can inform, it can teach, it can slow you down in a healthy way, it can make you more discerning, it can show you what needs to change, but it should not get to write the ending. That is where many people get stuck. Something did not work, so they stopped creating. Someone did not support, so they stopped showing up. A door didn't open, so they assumed they were wrong for believing. So this is something that I had to actually grow through. Is that one time I had the understanding that because it didn't work, then I was wrong for believing. So, and then there's others, the timing changed, so they question the whole assignment. But a changed timeline is not always a canceled assignment. Sometimes disappointment is not the end of the story. Sometimes it is the part that teaches us how to carry the story with more wisdom.
And that feels connected to so much of your work. Purpose does not always move in a straight line.
It does not. Purpose has process. And process will challenge the version of us that only wanted the promise. Some people want the result, but they do not always want the refinement. But the pen changes in your hand after you have been through something. You may write with more humility. You may write with more patience. You may write with more precision. You may write with more compassion, more spiritual maturity. That does not mean that disappointment was easy. It means the disappointment did not get wasted. Back to the pen after disappointment means I'm not the same person who started, but I still have something to say. And spiritually, that matters to me because going back to the pen is also where I let God search me before I try to produce for people. Sometimes we want direction, but God wants correction. Sometimes we want the next strategy, but God starts with the condition of our heart. Sometimes we want clarity about the assignment, but God starts showing us what we have been carrying incorrectly. The pen becomes a place where I can be honest with God, not polished, not performative, just honest. Lord, I'm tired. I'm frustrated. Help me to move out of fear. Help me to not move out of fear. Help me to not confuse pressure with instruction. Lord, show me what is mine to carry and what I need to release. Because when you are building anything meaningful, you need more than ideas. You need discernment. A good idea is not always a God instruction. A good opportunity is not always your assignment. A fast-moving door is not always the right door. Back to the pen is where you can learn the difference.
So good, Denise. So let's make this practical. If someone is listening and saying, I hear you, but I do not even know what to write anymore. I do not know where to start. What should they write?
What to write next? I suggest start with what is true, not what is impressive, not what sounds inspirational, not what you think someone else would approve of. Start with what is true. Write, what have I been carrying? What has been crowding my voice? What idea keeps coming back to me? What did I abandon too quickly? What did discernment make me believe? What am I doing only because I feel behind? And these questions will be listed in the listener guide. What part of my voice have I been editing down? What is still assigned to me, even if the timing changed? You do not have to answer all of that in one sitting, but you need a starting place. And sometimes that starting place is not the next big idea. Sometimes the starting place is naming the thing that made you put the pen down. That's what's to write next.
That removes the pressure to immediately produce something beautiful.
Yes, the first goal is not beauty. The first goal is honesty. Beauty can come later. Structure can come later. Strategy can come later. But if we skip honesty, the work may sound polished and still not sound like us. The return does not have to begin with a masterpiece. Sometimes it begins with one honest sentence, and one honest sentence can break the silence. You may not be able to write the whole chapter, but you can write the next line. You may not know the whole strategy today, but you can name the next right decision. You may not feel a full confident today, but you can stop calling yourself finished. Small returns are still returns that are worth celebrating.
Every episode in this series gives listeners something to carry with them. For episode 3, what are the 2 questions you want people to sit with this week?
2 questions to sit with this week. The first question is, what have I allowed to take the pen out of my hand? That could be fear, comparison, disappointment, exhaustion, people pleasing, pressure, grief, perfectionism, the fear of being misunderstood. But name it, because you cannot reclaim what you will not identify. The second question is, what is one honest line I need to write next? It might be, I need to begin again. It could be, I am still called to this, or I need rest before I rebuild. It might be, I have been creating from pressure, or I'm ready to stop editing my voice, or God help me return with clarity. That one line can become the beginning of your return.
So this week, listeners, sit with these 2 questions. What have I allowed to take the pen out of my hand? And what is one honest line I need to write next? Denise, before we close, what is your final word for the person who knows this episode is speaking directly to them?
If you know that this episode is speaking to you, my final word is, you're not empty because you got quiet. You may be tired. You may be disappointed. You may be in a place of processing. You may be rebuilding. You may be trying to find your rhythm again, but that does not mean your voice is gone. Sometimes the pen gets quiet because life gets loud. But when you return to it with honesty, you may discover that your voice did not disappear, it matured. You may not write the way you used to write. You may not create from the same place. You may not desire the same things. You may not move with the same urgency. And that is not always a loss. Sometimes that is growth. Back to the pen is not about becoming who you were before the interruption. It is about returning with the wisdom the interruption gave you. So pick the pen back up, not to prove something, not to perform something, not to rush something. Pick the pen again because your voice still matters. Pick it up because the assignment still deserves your honesty. Pick it up because your story should not be written only by what tried to stop you. And pick it up because there is still something in you that needs language.
That was powerful. Today's episode, Back to the Pen, is such an important reminder that returning to your voice does not always begin with confidence. Sometimes it begins with honesty. This is your invitation to stop letting pressure, comparison, disappointment, or exhaustion write the story for you. Come back to the pen, come back to the truth, come back to the voice that is still yours. And remember, be the voice, not the remix.
Yes, be the voice and not the remix. Thank you so much, Tonya. And thank you so much for listening to the She Thinks She's Cute podcast and for joining us for episode 3 of the Main Character Mindset podcast series. If this conversation spoke to you, would you do 3 things? First, share this episode with someone who may need the reminder that their voice is not gone. Secondly, would you download the podcast? And third, make sure you follow or subscribe to the She Thinks She's Cute podcast so you do not miss the final episode in this series. Next time, we are closing the series with Blueprint Energy. Until then, stay rooted, stay honest, and keep returning to the voice you were trusted to carry. I'm Denise Williams, and this is the She Thinks She's Cute podcast.
Some seasons do not unfold the way you planned. When my stage production had to be postponed, I found myself in a season I did not choose and could not push past. What felt like interruption revealed itself as instruction. What felt like delay became protection. What felt like stillness proved to be strategic. And in the middle of that season, I wrote a book, Strategic Stillness, When Pausing Protects the Promise. This is not a book about waiting passively. It's about recognizing when restraint is wisdom. It is for leaders, creatives, and vision holders who have felt the pressure to keep going, even when the body, their spirit, or their circumstances were asking for a pause. If progress has slowed, plans have shifted, or movement feels blocked, this book was written for you.
Available now on Amazon. Search Strategic Stillness by Denise Williams. Start your next season with Strategic Stillness.
Thank you for listening to the She Thinks She's Cute podcast. If this found you at the right moment, hold it, sit with it, share it, let it work. A space for thought-provoking stories and conversations. Created and hosted by Denise Williams. The story continues. We'll meet again in the next conversation. Until then, stay cute, stay aware, stay aligned, and stay becoming. She Thinks She's Cute. Original stories. Intentional impact.
Visit SheThinksSheCute.com. She Thinks She's Cute is a founder-led creative brand developing original, narrative-driven works across stage, experiential formats, and future screen projects, centered on perception, identity, and the unspoken dynamics that shape how we see ourselves and one another. Original stories, intentional impact. SheThinksSheCute.com.
She thinks she's cute, yes, she is. Every step she takes, she walks in power. She thinks she's cute, and she is. She thinks she's cute, and she is, yes.
She Thinks She's Cute stage production is now available for booking. Looking for a powerful stage experience for your women's conference, church event, university, corporate gathering, community event, or performing arts venue? She Thinks She's Cute is a compelling live production that sparks conversation, challenges assumptions, and reminds audiences of the power of empathy, healing, and unity among women. Bring this unforgettable production to your stage. Visit SheThinksSheCute.com and click the booking button for more details. She Thinks She's Cute stage production. Assumption is not always truth. She Thinks She's Cute stage production is now available for booking. Looking for a powerful stage experience for your women's conference, church event, university, corporate gathering, community event, or performing arts venue? She Thinks She's Cute is a compelling live production that sparks conversation, challenges assumptions, and reminds audiences of the power of empathy, healing, and unity among women. Bring this unforgettable production to your stage. Visit SheThinksSheCute.com and click the booking button for more details. She Thinks She's Cute stage production. Assumption is not always truth.